Very good evening, bit to Dr. Hughes. So for today, my presentation will be about Monopoly. So what I've came up with is basically a new design for the Monopoly game, which is a partnership with Formula One, which is basically the Monopoly D Formula One edition. Before we go further into the details of the product itself, let's just look at the company backgrounds. So Monopoly was first patented in 1935 and it currently is published by Hasbro. So the game, as we all know, is played with a roll of two dice for the players to move, and in their movements they will actually buy and trade properties along the way and also develop these properties with houses and hotels depending on whether they have the lot of all their properties. And the aim of the game is basically to drive other players into bankruptcy, hence the name Monopoly. So the board game has been licensed in over 103 countries and printed in over 37 seven languages. This shows how global the Monopoly game has become. And since its release, Monopoly has sold over 250 million copies worldwide, which translates to about an average of 3 million copies sold per year. On the other hand, Formula One is basically the pinnacle of motorsport that is sanctioned by the FIA, which is FIA refers to the governing body for the racing federation of pretty much every racing championship out there. Formula One started in 1950, and currently in 2021, it's participated by 10 teams. So the Formula One season is made up of series of races known as the Grand Prix, and it is a global sport because 13 of the 23 Grand Prix are actually located outside of Europe. So, for example, in Malaysia, we had one couple years back in Sepang. Unfortunately, the Sepang Formula One is no longer available because we are no longer participating in the Formula One campaign. Um, in terms of their presence, Formula One has a global presence and is high profile and has a lot of popularity. This results in a very prime merchandising environment. So some of the notable sponsors, as you can see, is Petronas with basically Mercedes, Cognizant with the new team Aston Martin, RCI Bank with Williams, Richard Mille with Ferrari, Dell, Shell, and Tech Heuer. So Formula One has a social media following of over 23 million followers across their social media platform, which includes YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Now, moving on to the second item, which is market intelligence. So what we've noted is the rise of board games. So in general, uh, in the Kickstarter campaign, over US dollars 17.6 million was pledged in 2019. So this is actually a 6.8% increase year on year. This shows how board game has risen in the sense that there are a lot of Kickstarter campaigns to actually curate new board games. And this rise of board games actually coincides with the rise of social media, as noted by Petersburg assistant professor. And this is because it is likely a retaliation against the ubiquity of social media. And board games offers a more engaging social activities as an avenue for those who felt isolated because of technology. Uh, yeah, in addition to that, there's also surge in board game demand, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Um, it was very apparent because people are sent into isolation, i.e., via lockdowns. So the board game was actually an effective way for them to actually distress, especially from the worries of COVID-19. And people turn to board games to take mind of these worries. And essentially, board games actually gives the consumers this comforting experience that they crave for, especially in trying to reconnect with past positive experience. For example, when they were a child playing board games with family members. So this is some of the reasons why board games has came and has been coming through a growing trend. So what does this mean for Formula One and Monopoly? Well, it basically means there's an opportunity for collaboration here. In terms of from Formula One's perspective, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it resulted in that most of the Formula One races or Grand Prix went without any fans, or even or in the instances with minimal number of fans present. So this restrictions actually prohibits them to engage with the Formula One fans and keeping them connected with the sport. Therefore, they need to find other opportunities or other touch points that they can use to actually keep in contact with their fans. So introducing this Monopoly Formula One edition can actually be a good addition to the touch points that they can have to engage with number one existing fans and also gain new fans. In a sense, and in terms from Monopoly's perspective, this collaboration can actually help them to penetrate a new market, and by creating a new product through a diversification approach. So in quarter three of 2020, Hasbro actually reported a 20% growth in sales compared to the same period last year. So basically, these sales were mainly contributed by their core games, for example, Monopoly, that remain the best sellers. So a combination of general growth in board games, as we mentioned previously, and also the surge in demand during quarantine suggests an opportune moment for both these companies to capitalize on, especially when we consider that some of the countries are actually going back to lockdown. For example, in Malaysia, we are back to PKP for the whole country. So, could this what do you call that relationship work? We believe so because, for example, when we look at Monopoly, and they actually have specific publications with two teams in the past, which is with Williams Racing back in 2017, and also Mercedes. They had the Silver Arrow Monopoly edition, which is the second edition back in 2019 or 2020. So this past collaboration has shown that Monopoly can has the capabilities or resources to say to actually do this, and also given that the Silver Arrows Monopoly actually went into production for the second edition, and based on external research is currently sold out, it suggests that the partnership were beneficial and also profitable. So now we'll move on to the product concept description and also design specification. So before we go further into the product design, let's just look at the benefits that having this product can actually do. So number one, Monopoly serves consumers' needs to distress from everyday events. So having this new product is a new gives them more well, more opportunities or more tools to actually distress from everyday events. Secondly, the product is a platform that can allow consumers to socially interact with others in a fun and engaging manner. Thirdly, Monopoly also helps consumers to relive past positive memories. Fourth is that Monopoly helps consumers to learn the basics of economics, finance, and negotiation. This is seen where you have to learn how to negotiate a trade, for example, and then you learn about the economics and the finances of your of cash flow, and also you are open to the real world experience where economic inequalities are apparent because everybody in the game starts with the same amount of currency, yet somehow one or two% will move ahead and have a monopoly of the board. And in terms of the Formula One edition, it also helps to expose consumers to the Formula One world in an interactive and fun manner. So as we go further into the presentation, I'll show you the different kind of tweaks that we've made to actually tailor this product to be engaging and to be interactive and educating um, approach to learn about the Formula One world. So now we move on to the product design specification. So the first thing I'll show here is the game board that I've proposed that is developed largely based on the original Monopoly board. As you can see, the colors of each space are true to what Monopoly has done, the red areas, the yellow areas, and whatnot. However, we did change instead of having cities or having countries. What we have is the various race events, which is basically, for example, the Bahrain Grand Prix, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and whatnot. And secondly, one some of the tweaks is actually replacing the go plot with a lap plot, because that's how a Formula One race is. It goes by laps, and then instead of taxes, we have grid penalties. So basically, you receive a grid penalty if you've broken the rules and whatnot. And also, free parking is replaced with free practice, which is basically its terminology in Formula One. So these tweaks make better suits the Formula One world and is a better representative of it. Now, in terms of the player pieces, we have moved on from the normal, shoe, cars, and whatnot, but we have a specific design based on the real Formula One cars. So as you see here, these are six of the designs that can be proposed based on the current 2021 Formula One design. In terms of game currency, instead of having the monopoly credits or monopoly dollars, right, we have changed it to using driver points, because the Formula One championship is win or loss based on the points that the drivers win week in and week out. So instead of trading money, what we do is the drivers can purchase properties or can gain drivers points, and this will be kept using the card machine that is similar to what prior Monopoly credit card editions have. And in terms of property, so as mentioned earlier, we've changed it to Grand Prix, basically the races of the Formula One season. So this will replace the traditional property cards, and instead of having rent increase based on the houses, we have rent increase based on the pit lane, and the hotel is replaced with a garage. And now, in terms of the transportation that you normally see, Monopoly Space, Monopoly Air, and Monopoly Cruise, for example, we change it to equipment cards, which is basically the equipments that a Formula One team needs to develop their cars. So, for example, the wind tunnel and also the racing simulator. Now, in terms of the utilities, instead of having a wind or a solar utility, we have this qualifying fastest lap and also race fastest lap. So, in the Formula One world, qualifying fastest lap is important to win your pole position, and the race fastest lap is important for an additional world championship point. So, it fits in this board in itself, the fastest lap replacing the traditional utility cards. And finally, as you can see, pit stop and race control is replacing the community chest and also the chance card. So instead of the typical collecting 1 million because of successful event, you can actually collect 1 million drivers point for achieving your 15 consecutive race, for example. And instead of you know um, having your currency deducted because of X, Y, and Z. This is specific in the sense that, for example, here I've put 500k of your race point have been deducted because of ignoring blue flags. So just for your information, when in a real Formula One race, when you are behind and you are given a blue flag, you are required to move to the side to ensure that people that from behind can pass you. So if you fail to do so, you will be given a penalty. Now, we've talked about um, the product design. Now let's move on to the product feasibility. So in terms of product feasibility, we know that Monopoly has been around since 1935 and sold over 250 million copies. Given this, we know the company should have developed the necessary economies of scales and the competitive advantage needed to sustain such a long revenue run. And in addition to that, the required naming or intellectual property rights is already owned by Monopoly and Formula One. So, for example, when we talk about the board, it's patented. They already have the rights to it. And also, when you talk about Formula One brand names and whatnot, they have the rights to that. So, a partnership deal that leverages on both the company's strength, which is Monopoly's ability to actually build the board, and Formula One's ability to actually that has the rights to the names and also has the reach to to the target market, can ensure that the product is feasible. And just to pull out some statistics, we found that 22% of consumers actually spend over $1,000 annually for board games, and 21% spend between 600 and $1,000 annually for board games. So what this shows is that there is a demand for it and people are willing to spend money for it. Given the capabilities of Formula One and Monopoly together, if they can create this product, they can definitely sell and make the product feasible and make a profit in the future. Now, of course, the claims before must be backed by statistics. So this is the potential revenue that Formula One can make based on 100,000 units sold, 250,000 units sold, half a million units sold, 1 million or 2 million units sold. And this is the projection is based on statistics that they are able to sell over 3 million copies a year. So these projections are not far-fetched in itself. So they can earn range from 5 million pounds to over 100 million pounds, or in ringgit terms, 30 million ringgit to over 600 million ringgit. So as you can see, if they can curate and keep the cost down, the revenue is there, and therefore they can definitely make a profit. So now we move on to the positioning and branding strategies. So as Monopoly is a what do you call that, an aging brand, so to say. There's so many iterations of it. What can we do with this product to ensure that the product remain viable, number one, and number two, in actually pick the interests of the consumers. So we need to look back into our segmentation, targeting, and positioning strategies to ensure that, number one, we can segment the market the right way, and also we can target and position the brand to ensure the best outcome for the product. So what we've decided is that the best possible thing to do is through psychographic segmentation, which is focusing on their interests, whether they're interested in Formula One and board games or not. So from there, we can target specifically the innovators and early adopters in this group, because they are the persons who are actually the ones that will resonate the most with a new product. And from this group of people who like Formula One and board enthusiasts. So in the beginning stage, it's important that we gain and we target the innovators and early adopters. That will trickle down later on to the rest of the market. And in terms of positioning, we also want to position the product as an official Formula One merchandise. Why? Because doing so, it can bolster the authenticity of the product, and of being an extension to the Formula One brand and Monopoly brand as well. So this positioning stance gives the credibility of to the product that can actually help reduce the hesitance from the consumers to actually buy the product. And now we move on to the marketing mix. So the marketing mix made up of the place, price, product, and promotion. So how are we going to sell this product? So we're going to use a multi-channel distribution approach. So we're going to sell it via online. So it will be sold on the official Formula One merchandise store. We can also sell it on Best Buy, Amazon, Target, Tesco, Lazada, Shopee, and Taobao. So these are like the key online stores that have been outlined, that targets the USA, the European Union, and also locally Malaysia, and also Taobao for China. So there's a strong reach there. And in terms of offline sales, we can go to specific, toy stores like Hamleys or Toys R Us, Best Buy, Walmart, and Target. In terms of price, at this moment, based on the historical data of the Silver Arrows monopoly, we believe it should be set at pounds 50 pounds, or equivalent to about 300 ringgit. In terms of the product itself, as mentioned previously, it will be the Monopoly Formula One edition set, which is basically similar to the previous edition, the previous Monopoly set. So just imagine having all the dices, the hotels, and whatnot, but in this case, something specific curated to the Formula One world as presented previously. And in terms of promotion, we will market it as an official Formula One merchandise. We'll advertise it through campaigns to communicate it to the consumers. We'll also use social media and sponsorship style promotions. Why social media? Because with over 22 million followers, Formula One has a strong reach in social media, and so this would hopefully this should be this should be something that Formula One can leverage on. And in terms of the physical billboards during the Grand Prix, because of the high profile and the wide coverage of Formula One globally, having the monopoly advertised there is a good step to go. And also we can also include direct mail, which is basically sending email to our subscribe Formula One mailing list. So before we go to the ending stages, let's just recap about the product concept. So what we want to propose is basically a Formula One Monopoly edition that is largely based on the original Monopoly and also the Silver Arrows Monopoly board game. So the tweaks that we've made to this edition is to ensure that it's more reflective of the overall Formula One world. So these tweaks were from the game currency, the properties related, the utilities, transportation, commodity chest, chance, and taxes. So the basics of the gameplay will remain the same as prior Monopoly. This is to ensure the consistent playability with past iterations. Yet, sufficient changes has been made to ensure that consumers gain a more closely realistic experience of Formula One itself. And the essential part to position and this is very essential to position the product as an official Formula One merchandise, and it gives that the credibility to the product. And finally, we'll move on to the market research proposal or brief. So through the market intelligence that we have gathered, we have covered the new product concept, the design specification, the new product feasibility, and also the potential positioning and rebranding strategies. The next step is to conduct actually a product testing by using the minimum viable product that can be created. This is to test whether the product needs any more tweaking and whether the product meets the specific intended usage. And if there is a need of tweaks based on the responses received, iterations changes can be made. Secondly, once the product is complete, we can introduce the final product to a specific region. In this case, I would suggest European Union and the United Kingdom. Why? Because this region is actually the headquarters of most of the participating Formula One teams. Therefore, comes with it the large fan base that we need to actually make the product launch a success. And the reason for a specific product launch as well is because in the case that there's any issues, the product can easily be taken out and also make iterations before relaunching. And also, so to say that we don't put too many resources on potentially for something bad that can happen. So this will actually minimize any um, negativity in a sense. And finally, in terms of our future plans, currently, yes, the target is to actually appeal to the innovators, to the early adopters of the Formula One fans community and also board game enthusiasts. But in the future, we need to make steps to ensure that the product can also future iterations would be accepted by the masses as well. So we need to research on what actually appeals to the masses, gain these insights, and develop our future iterations based on their what do you call that based on our research insights. And with this, we can actually use quantitative approach, either by survey or qualitative approach through interviews and focus group discussion to gain this insight. So from these insights, we can curate something that can not only appeal to the Formula One fans, to the board game enthusiasts, but also to the general market. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening. Um, yep, thank you.